morning. Welcome to 49ers in 5, your daily update on everything happening with the team that you need to know. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. Today is Friday, April 14th, 2023. Here's what's happening with your San Francisco 49ers. We are less than 2 weeks from the draft, and ESPN.com just put out an interesting article with all the latest draft buzz for every single team in the league. So, of course, I immediately scroll down to the 49ers, and I see a couple of interesting things. First, from Nick Wagoner on the possibility of the 49ers trading up in the draft. Quote, "The Niners have enough needs, offensive tackle, edge rusher, kicker, depth all over, that they're more likely to throw more darts at the board than make a big move up unless there's a highly graded difference maker who falls into their range." That, of course, goes along with what John Lynch himself said at the league meetings.
As I've been preparing for this draft over the last year, really the hallmark of it, I see a lot of depth. I'm not just saying this because of our circumstances. Not sure I'd be thrilled about having a bunch of early picks because it feels like there's not much differentiation from the top guys and the middle guy. There's a lot of good players, so I think it sets up very well for us.
Remember, though, this is officially the season of lying. I don't know if you know this. There are 5 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall, and lying. And that, of course, is the month or month and a half before the NFL draft. Teams are paranoid about giving away any potential information, so you have to take everything they're saying with a massive grain of salt until the draft is over. With 11 picks, though, the Niners probably have more lottery tickets than they have roster spots at this point, so I wouldn't rule out a trade-up if there's someone near the top of the 3rd round that they want. And while I was digging through that Lynch press conference audio to get that soundbite, I came across another interesting draft tidbit that I hadn't heard before.
Thought about some ideas of tweaking our process. When I've been watching it personally, I usually start at the top and work down. I flipped it. I started at the bottom and worked up, because you tend to get enamored in watching those front of the draft guys, and you got to be prepared for everything. But I chose to hey, let's start down here with our lowest draftable grades and let's work up. And we may do that as a group, but we're excited about it. I think it's a really quality draft.
That's a very interesting idea that I would love to run by people who have done draft prep before. Usually, when you get down to the later rounds, you're depending more on your scouts that have been following those players longer than the decision makers at the top of the front office. It might be a good thing to change it up a little. Of course, then again, with the success the Niners have had in the later rounds of the draft, you may not want to change too much. The other part of the ESPN Draft Rumors article that I found interesting was this from Matt Miller. Quote, "A source with knowledge of the team's plans says they have done more work on tight ends than any other team they've encountered. With needs on the offensive line and secondary, it would be a surprise early selection, but file this nugget away for early on day 3 of the draft. Luke Schoonmaker, Tucker Kraft, and Zach Kuntz are realistic options in the latter parts of day 2 or early rounds on day 3. In a historically great tight end class, the 49ers could definitely find a running mate for Kittle." End quote. Well, how about that? The 49ers are investigating tight ends more than any other team. Why would they be putting all those resources into a position where they already have a bona fide starter? You know the answer to that, because they aren't looking for a running mate for George Kittle. They're looking for a replacement for George Kittle. Wonder if he'll quote tweet me about that one. We always give you one thing to read, one thing to watch, and one thing you might have missed. One thing to read on this Friday: if you had listened to my show with Grant earlier this week, you know the 49ers had a private workout with UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson this month. What you may not know is that the Niners have been sniffing around quite a bit of quarterbacks during their draft prep. Matt Barrows has the story in The Athletic. One thing to watch: Tom Pelissero reported that wide receiver Laquan Treadwell visited with the 49ers yesterday. He spent last year with the Seahawks, where he caught 6 passes for 42 yards in 6 games. One thing you may have missed: a new quarterback-specific helmet will be available to players for the first time this year. The Vice's 02 Matrix QB helmet is specifically made to offer greater protection when a quarterback's head hits the ground. Last year, the number of diagnosed concussions rose by 18% league-wide, and the NFL said helmet-to-ground impacts account for half of quarterback in-game concussions. This new helmet has undergone lab testing that simulated concussion-causing impacts sustained by quarterbacks, and it did 7% better at reducing impact severity compared with the most popular helmet worn by QBs last season. And God, if every 49er fan doesn't wish Josh Johnson had that in the NFC Championship game last season. That's a wrap on today's 49ers in 5. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Enjoy your Friday and your weekend, everybody. Stay tuned for the Gold Diggers podcast with myself and Michelle Majuk. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. We'll talk on Monday.